Here we go with part 2 of why nice guys finish last and how to change that by dating Coach Naz. We're going to be reacting live. This is what I love to talk about on this channel. Let's continue.
And so the second point that I want to make here is you're not setting boundaries. This is one of the biggest reasons why nice guys, they struggle with creating relationships because they have a hard time setting boundaries or saying no to.
That is 100% how you change this. I'm glad she got to that early in the video because that is 100% what you need to do. Create boundaries. Don't put up with crap from day one. If she's not giving you enough attention, doing something that is like if she's talking to her ex and that's off-putting immediately, tell that to her. Say, hey, if I'm going on dates with you, these other people are out of your life. Like, you need to draw lines in the sand immediately. And she's going to appreciate that. And you have to do it. You cannot put up with sketchy stuff from the beginning. She doesn't... And sometimes she's just going to test your boundaries and do stuff like that. It's going to happen, right? Especially in today's dating where... when you start dating, it's not always necessarily just an official start to dating. There's all these situationships and talking phases and all this crap. So it's more important than ever that you set these boundaries. And she's going to appreciate it.
Women, because they want to be nice, right? And
I've said it so many times that on this channel, it is not nice to just simp for a woman and just cater to her every need and just be subservient, because she's not going to find that attractive. So if you're trying to date this woman and you're not doing the things you need to do to make her attracted to you, then you're not being nice towards her ultimately, because you're not doing the things that she would need to be attracted to you to start a relationship with you, but you're expecting her to start a relationship with you. But you're not doing the things you need to do. You're not holding up your end of the bargain, right? And yet you have to do those things. You just have to. It's nicer to create a positive interaction, even if it doesn't necessarily even lead to a relationship. A woman's going to have a better experience with you overall, even if it ultimately leads to nothing, if you're at least like doing these things that shows like you have value and you want to date her. Therefore, you're setting up these boundaries. You're drawing these lines in the sand because you care, and you care to actually have her be attracted to you.
it sucks because, and nice guys are they're not mean. They're not like bad human beings. They just lack some boundaries. So if we just figure this out, a couple of these pointers, then you're going to be on your way to attracting a great relationship. So the nice guys often don't set clear boundaries because they want to avoid conflict. I honestly...
Now, you also need to understand that you don't want to date some of these women, right? Like if a woman's clearly hooking up with her ex early into starting to deal with you a little bit, you might not want to date her, right? So setting these boundaries also includes you just eliminating some of these women from the running. That is a vital part of all of this. Because really, are you going to want to be in a relationship with a woman who's like, hooking up with all these dudes when you start dating? Or like leading up to you starting to, you really don't, right? Or is just disrespectful or whatever it is, that's just gonna still remain an issue when you're in a relationship. In fact, it will probably get worse. So you need to be vetting these women, like filtering them out of the running.
I feel like every man on the planet wants to avoid conflict. If you're toxic, that's different. But if you're a healthy man, I feel like every man, you just don't want to fight, right? And so And also, you're somebody who wants to make your woman happy at all costs, right? So that is a red flag when you just want to make her happy. And
That's so funny. It's a red flag that you want to make your woman happy. It kind of is, though. Like, because you need to be setting these boundaries. You can't be putting up with how she's treating you. You just can't. You cannot. It's the way she goes. It sounds ridiculous, but it's the way she goes.
and then you're forgetting that a relationship is a two-way street. It's not just all about her, it's about you as well. Now, the reason why this is a problem, there's a research on relationship dynamics that shows failing to set boundaries can lead to resentment. I've definitely felt this, and emotional exhaustion, right? And also, people in relationships without boundaries tend to feel unappreciated and drained. So, and by the way, this is again not just going to affect your relationships, or it's going to affect all parts of your life.
I bring that up all the time. I even am thinking about doing a video of recommending movies that you need to watch because of this exact thing. Because so much of this stuff to do with relationships, with romantic relationships, ties into all of your interpersonal relationships. And I think that is a vital point that so many people completely overlook. And yes, setting boundaries is something you need to do with people you're potentially going to date, people you are dating, people you're friends with, people, family members you're close with. Absolutely everyone. You need to be setting boundaries and not putting up with crap from people. It's so much better that you do that. And women, in particular, the women that you are seeking a romantic relationship more than anyone will appreciate that, because she will feel that you value yourself, that ultimately you value her more than somebody who doesn't have these boundaries, and that you will, for her, like, set boundaries that she has onto other people for her when you become a couple and you function as a couple, right? Because then you can enforce boundaries that she has towards, say, her family or her friends or whoever, right? Like, women want a protector, and usually in today's society, that doesn't mean like literally fist fighting somebody. It more so means like, you know, sticking up for somebody in terms of like an argument or a boundary, or yes, that's I don't know how else to put it. Let's continue.
When you're a nice person, you really can't be a nice person in business or in work. You have to stand up for yourself, have boundaries with your friendships, with everybody. And so again, this is not just going to affect that woman, the relationship you have. It's going to affect all parts of your life, as everything is interconnected. Now, why you should avoid this is, if you're always putting her needs before your own, what you'll do is you'll eventually feel burnt out, right? And the relationship will lack balance. So it's going to be her taking everything, and then you over here giving her all the stuff, and you have nothing for yourself. Now, the way to fix this is to set clear.
And that exactly ties into what I just said about her seeing the value in you, seeing the value in her. Meaning that you will be enforcing the boundaries she has onto other people, but she will understand that if you're just simping for her, that you won't be able to do that because you're focusing all this energy towards her. I don't know if I communicated that clearly with the statement I just made, but she is going to understand immediately that you're just a pushover, because you're being a pushover for her. So therefore, you're not going to be able to stand up for her to other people going forward, right? Because you're not even standing up for yourself to her. And women will create all kinds of arguments. Like, she was 100% right when she just said that men avoid conflict at all costs. They avoid arguing at all costs. That's true. And women often will just create conflict specifically just to get a reaction out of you, to see what your reaction is, because they're trying to calibrate all these things, especially early on. They want to calibrate what how you perceive them, and it's one of the ways that they do it. It's sneaky, it's weird, it's frustrating to deal with as men, which is why she referred to as it being so clear that all men try to avoid it, because it's just frustrating, right? When someone's creating arguments with you just to create arguments with you, just to see that you have enough passion and care for them to stand up to them, to not put up with their BS.
Your boundaries at the very beginning when you're dating. This is why I always talk to clients, people, men, everyone. Set your boundaries at the very beginning. Don't wait until you're married and then start, stating your boundaries. I mean, if you're already in it and you just realize this now, yes, go ahead and do it. But this is for all the people that are newly getting into the dating world. Set your boundaries now. And if you're somebody who gets uncomfortable with setting boundaries, get into that. Ask yourself, go back into your past, get a therapist, because this is really huge to understand. Why is it so difficult for you to set a boundary? What happened?
Yeah, that's super critical. Like, I can see that in people that I like, women especially that I know. Like, start setting boundaries. Like, there's so many women that I know in my personal life that would have an easier life if they could just set boundaries. And often that's them setting boundaries with other women who they're friends with or in their family. I won't get too specific, but if they could just set boundaries and maintain those boundaries and enforce those boundaries, they'd be so much better off. Women seem kind of not great at that, so they're going to appreciate the hell out of it when you, as a man, have your boundaries that you apply and enforce on them, because they're going to know that you're going to be able to help them out with their boundaries towards other people. They're going to love that, right? That's why confidence, that's why women have been saying for centuries, confidence is the most important thing. Because of stuff like this, little things that are, and even women kind of undervalue the little details like that in particular that I'm talking about, of having a man enforce boundaries for you. Like, that's actually a huge thing that women themselves kind of, maybe because it sounds bad, like it's not very feminist, but it is critical. And I wish that women and men, but mostly women, were better at setting and enforcing the boundaries that they have.
Happened in your childhood, what happened in your past relationships for you to believe that you're unable or you're not enough to create a boundary? Because a boundary doesn't mean that you're being a mean person. It just is telling the other person how to love you, right? And so it's very important to say no, especially when something is not aligning with your values or your needs, right? If you're like, you know what, today I don't want to go out, today I don't want to show up, you have to communicate. And if somebody doesn't accept you for you stating your truth and for you looking after yourself, that person cannot be in your life, because they're not your well-wisher. They would rather see you, exhausted. They would rather see you they would rather cause you harm than see you just living, being happy and
Yeah, that's exactly what I like to point out to people, is these relationships. If you're a guy who's simping for a woman, you don't want that relationship. You 100% don't. You wouldn't want it if you got it, because it's so one-sided. It would be shitty, right? Like, it actually devalues the woman to even be in that relationship fundamentally, because it it doesn't challenge her. It doesn't like give her anything ultimately, because she's just in a relationship with a simp, just somebody who's in a practical sense, in many ways, quite useless to her. Yeah, and she's not going to have any respect for you, and it's going to be a terrible, terrible relationship. If she has... now, women could also be better at setting this boundary for themselves and realizing that it actually looks quite scummy on them to even allow men to simp for them. Yeah, it's not great. And you wouldn't want to be in that type of relationship, guys. You absolutely would never want to be in that. This weird slave-master relationship, right? Like, it's not real.
Looking after yourself. So it really is very telling of that person that you're with. Now, for example, if you always agree, this is a big one, to last-minute plans, that's inconvenient for you, but she never makes time, or she never makes time when you need it. This is a sign that the boundaries need to be established, because as you guys can notice here, it's imbalanced. You know, she's behaving in a different way, and you're behaving in a different. You both are giving each other different things, and it's not a balanced relationship. And again, this is going to lead to resentment, blow-ups. The third point.
Yeah. She kind of breezed by it, but I 100% agree. If you're in that situation, this person's just not caring, right? Like, if they're changing plans on the fly and disrespecting your time, bail completely, right? Like, that's a huge and very important boundary that you need to set. I have that boundary. I'm not wasting any of my time. I ain't doing any favor for you unless you're doing something for me, right? There's no way. There's no way. I've gone on incredible dates with incredibly attractive women where a second date, right? All excited for a second date, and they do something goofy like that, and you're out. You're gone. Bye. See ya later. Like, it's just, you know, I just won't even text you. I just it's finished, right? Like, if plans don't even happen, right? Like, say you're supposed to go out this day. If we aren't going out that day that we had kind of planned to go on a date, either you're giving me a giant apology that includes a time and a place, like, oh, because there's some times where it just stuff comes up, right? Life happens. But we're hanging out within the next, like, 2 days, and you're apologizing to me and making it up to me. Or I ain't talking to you, I ain't hanging out with you, I ain't talking to you, you ain't getting 1 minute of attention from me. And that's a very reasonable standard to set for yourself, guys. That's like, I would say it's critical. It's important for your life, your happiness, and just living an effective and efficient life. You don't got time to be wasting, like, planning your day around spending time with some woman and then things change. No. Never put up with that, even a little bit. And just outright say it. Outright say it, right? Say you have plans with some woman. You're like, you know, you're vibing. Yeah, you're potentially starting a date or whatever. Say it. Say you're going to hang out, but then all of a sudden she's not ready. She texts you like, oh, so I hang out like 3 hours from when you're supposed to hang out. Say, yeah, I'm not really. Just say, nah, never mind then. Like, I don't really deal with flaky women. Text that exact sentence, right? Like, you need to set the boundary. You need to make it super clear. Like, hey, you're actually disrespecting me by doing this. I ain't putting up with that. Find a way to express that in a quick text, but keep it like incredibly short, to the point, and being like, well, you know, like, don't say like nice knowing you, like I never want to talk to you again. Don't make it like, even if you're quite frustrated, don't express that frustration. Just express like, all right, well, I don't deal with people like that. On to the next one. Don't say on to the next one, but whatever you're saying should kind of have that vibe of like, well, see ya.
I want to mention is you're not showing your true self. This is like one of the biggest ones, right? So unfortunately, nice guys tend to put on a facade because you're trying to please her. If I act this way, then she's going to like me. And then she's going to accept me. Rather than just being your authentic self, even if it is.
I had to throw up the Hercule for a second there. Yeah, I could never give somebody advice of not being yourself. That I don't see any advantage to ever not being yourself, pretending to be something you're not, lying. No, not gonna happen. Don't do it. No reason to do it.
Is flawed, even if it is not that pretty sometimes, but allowing her to see those parts of you. And if she again doesn't accept you for that version of you, your authentic self, who your soul came here to be, she's not meant to be in your life. And I think some people are in denial of realizing these things and are so attached to this idea of being in a relationship and like having a companion. Oh, I'm going to be lonely for the rest of my life. Yeah, but like, would you rather be alone, or would you rather be with somebody who does not accept you for who you really are? Which one? I think of myself in my deathbed. I'm like, I wish I listened to my intuition. I wish that I stood up for myself. I wish that I spoke up, you know? So always think back whenever you're getting in your head and you're getting in your mind, think you're not here forever. So
I don't think of it in those terms, but I also just do stick up for myself and speak up for myself. It's what I do just naturally. I never think of it in terms of, oh, well, I don't want to have regrets on my deathbed, but I guess maybe if I dug a little deeper, maybe I do think about it in that way, but I've just never thought about it in that way. But we'll cut it there, and I'll see you in part 3.